Alright guys, so welcome back. We are talking about the making of the Nigerian Fourth Republic, and we've talked about some Nigerian nationalist leaders. But then let's take a quick look at the politics of the First Republic, what actually happened in the First Republic. The first decade of Nigeria's independence dramatized the difficulties of coming of age as a nation in the 20th century when Nigeria achieved independence on the 1st of October 1960. It was with minimum internal cohesion. The country adopted the federal constitution by which our leaders hoped they would achieve a viable unification of various territorial subsections and the different peoples which the British colonial power had previously wielded together under one administrative umbrella for their own convenience. However, post-independence experiences soon demonstrated that more meaningful factors other than federalism and common colonial historical heritage had to be utilized in our efforts to achieve that degree of national cohesion that could assure a political development and a stable society. But it had been a false hope because nationalist activities during the constitutional struggles for independence had merely blunted or even muted the ethnic rivalry and political factions among the various peoples in the country, as we previously written in Chapter 1, 13 Problems of Nationhood, all revolving around the question of power sharing, accentuated these subdued differences within the first few years of the attainment of independence. Nigeria's major problem was the distribution of political power, which was a crisis that was aggravated by the presence of several political parties and multiplicity of ethnic groups. It was not so much that the competitors for power were too many, rather the basis for the equitable distribution of power were either lacking or ill-defined. The major competitors of both the majority and the minority ethnic groups and their respective political parties included the Northern People's Congress, which is the NPC, and the Hausa in the north, the Yoruba and the Action Group Party AG in the west, and the National Convention of Nigerian Citizens, the NCNC, and the Igbo people in the east. There were also the minority ethnic groups in the Midwest, in the Middle Belt, and in the Calabar-Ogoja rivers, which is the COR area. None with a viable political party base. A coalition of the NPC and the NCNC formed the government in 1959 with independence a year later, and the AG was the opposition party. The post-independence political experience of Nigeria was a particularly turbulent one. Several factors contributed to it, and the major contributory factors included the shaky tripartite federal structure with strong regionalism, disparity in the sizes and populations of the three regions, three major base regional and tribally sustained political parties, including cutthroat politicians, most of whom hadn't the vaguest idea about the art of politics, and the weak constitution. However, as long as the country's tripartite arrangement was maintained, Nigeria's federal union was relatively stable, but attempts by any of the political parties to acquire more political power disequilibrated the tripartite federal structure. The desire to attain more political power was strongest with AG in the post-independence era, when the party sought to extend its political power into other regions in 1959 and won 25 seats in the north and 14 in the east. The stability of Nigeria's tripartite federal arrangement was in jeopardy. Yet another major constraint on Nigeria's tripartite federal matrimony, closely related to the quest for power, was the lack of political consensus or ideological ties among the nation's political parties and political leaders. Their varied political orientations were immediately evident on the eve of Nigeria's independence, when both the NPC and the NCNC formed a tenuous coalition government after the 1959 election. The election's result had precipitated the political stalemate, with no single party able to win an overall majority of seats. A government therefore could be formed by a coalition of two parties, a coalition of two southern-based parties, the NCNC and the AG, with Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe to become the prime minister, was considered. It did not work because the NCNC leadership maintained that the unity of the nation would be at stake, as it claimed that the North might secede from a Nigeria ruled by the southern-based parties. A failure of both the NCNC and the AG to form a coalition government was due more to lack of common ties and to personality clash than to a fear of northern secession.